Have you ever had a moment where you're sitting across from someone you've known for years, sipping your coffee, and they ask you something that makes you pause? Not because it was deep or meaningful, but because it just didn't sit right with you. Maybe they smiled a little too sweetly, or their tone was just off. And for a second you wondered, are they really my friend? As we get older, we tend to think that life naturally weeds out the people who don't have our best interests at heart. That by now we've seen enough, lived enough, and learned enough to spot the difference between someone who genuinely cares and someone who's only sticking around for what they can get. But the truth is, fake friends don't always show their colors right away. Sometimes they blend in so well, we only notice the cracks when something feels off. A question, a comment, a look that leaves us unsettled. You see, not all harmful people come with loud drama or outright betrayal. Some show up in subtler ways, in the questions they ask and the motives hiding behind those words. That's what we're going to talk about today. Because protecting your peace, your heart, and your energy isn't just important. It's essential. Let me ask you this. Has anyone ever turned to you and said, "So, what do you even do with all your time these days?" It sounds like small talk, right? But there's something about it. The way it's asked, the smirk on their face, the hint of judgment in their tone, that just doesn't feel friendly. That's the first type of question fake friends love to ask. It's framed as innocent curiosity, but it comes from a place of subtle criticism. Maybe you've just retired, or you're choosing to enjoy your quiet mornings, your garden, your books, or time with your grandchildren. But this person isn't asking because they're genuinely interested in your happiness. They're sizing you up. They're trying to make you feel like your life lacks value now, that you're not hustling the way the world seems to expect. And here's the thing, you don't owe anyone an explanation for your peace. The time you've earned is yours. You've spent decades working, raising families, serving others. You have every right to rest without guilt. So when someone questions how you spend your time, listen to how it's said. A real friend celebrates your joy. A fake one? They disguise their criticism as curiosity. Now, let's talk about another one that sneaks in just as subtly. Are you sure you can afford that? Maybe you've shared a plan to take a trip, remodel your kitchen, or sign up for a new class you've always wanted to take. Instead of cheering you on, they furrow their brow and hit you with this question, like they're your accountant, your financial advisor, or worse, your parent. But here's what's really going on. That question isn't about your bank account. It's about control. Fake friends don't like it when you invest in yourself. They don't like seeing you excited, empowered, or indulging in the joys life still has to offer. Why? Because your growth threatens their comfort. Your confidence unsettles their insecurity. It's not that you've asked them for permission, but they act like you did. Like they have a say in how you live, what you spend, or what you deserve. And the worst part? They'll pretend it's concern. "I'm just looking out for you," they might say. But if their concern only shows up when you're happy, take a closer look. A real friend wants to see you thrive. A fake one wants to keep you small. And calling it love doesn't make it true. Sometimes fake friends will throw out something that sounds helpful, but is actually deeply dismissive. They'll ask, "Don't you think you're being a little too sensitive?" That one stings, especially if you've just shared how something made you feel. Maybe a harsh comment they made, or something they did that crossed a line. You open your heart, and instead of acknowledgement, they flip the script and make you the problem. Let's be real. After 60, you've felt your share of pain. You've gained wisdom through experience. And yes, you've probably grown more aware of who and what drains your spirit. That's not being sensitive. That's being smart. That's protecting the most sacred part of yourself, your emotional well-being. When someone tries to gaslight you by turning your feelings into flaws, that's not friendship. That's manipulation. And often it's a pattern. Every time you express something that made you uncomfortable, they push it back on you. You're too sensitive. You misunderstood. You're making a big deal out of nothing. But you know better. You know what respect feels like and what it doesn't. And here's the catch. The older we get, the more intentional we have to be about the energy we allow into our lives. Because energy is everything. The people we let in, their words, their questions, their attitudes, they either lift us or slowly chip away at us. You deserve to be surrounded by those who see your value without needing an explanation, who support your joy without jealousy, who listen without judgment. Your time is too precious. Your heart has come too far. So the next time someone asks a question that makes you pause, that leaves a bitter taste even when it's sugar-coated. Don't ignore that feeling. That's your intuition speaking. And at this stage in life, your intuition is not just a guide. It's a gift. If you've ever felt the sting of being around someone who smiles in your face but slips those little digs into conversation, if you've ever walked away from a get-together feeling drained, not because of your age but because of who you were with, know that you are not alone. So many people feel it, but they brush it off. Because we've known each other forever. Or that's just how she is. Or I don't want to cause drama. But your peace is more important than keeping the peace. And part of protecting it is being able to recognize these subtle but powerful signs. Let's keep this going. Because once you start spotting the patterns, you'll never see things the same way again. Once you've begun noticing those little signs, the offhanded questions, the subtle dismissals, it's like a light turns on. Suddenly, things that used to confuse you make a lot more sense. That lingering discomfort after a phone call, that heavy feeling after spending time with someone who's supposed to care about you. It's not in your head. It's your heart speaking up, finally being heard after years of quieting it down for the sake of politeness or old habits. And here's another question that often comes from someone who's not really in your corner. Are you still holding on to that? They'll say it when you bring up a moment that hurt you, something they said or did, maybe even years ago, and they want to sweep it under the rug. They want to erase the impact their words had on you and make you feel foolish for remembering. But here's the truth. It's not about holding on to grudges. It's about honoring your own feelings. When someone hurts you, especially someone you've trusted, it leaves a mark. Wanting accountability doesn't make you bitter. It makes you brave. You're not asking for perfection. You're asking for respect. But a fake friend would rather make you feel guilty for remembering than say, "I'm sorry," and mean it. They might even act like they're above it all, like they've moved on and you're just stuck in the past. But let's be honest. Being emotionally intelligent enough to circle back to a moment that needs closure isn't being stuck. It's being mature. It's being clear that your boundaries matter. And at this point in life, you've earned the right to draw those boundaries with bold, unapologetic lines. And just when you think you've sorted through that confusion, they hit you with another question. One that might sound like concern at first, but carries a subtle blade underneath. Do you really think you can handle that at your age? Now that one's a classic. It doesn't matter if you're thinking of joining a fitness class, starting a creative hobby, going on a cruise, or even just learning how to use a new phone. If someone responds with that question, stop and take a breath. Because what they're doing is planting doubt. They're trying to make you feel small, fragile, incapable. and they're doing it under the disguise of looking out for you. But what they're really saying is, stay where you are. Don't grow. Don't change. Don't challenge yourself. It makes me uncomfortable. Think about that. Why would a real friend want you to dim your light? Why would someone who loves you want you to be less of yourself? You've got decades of strength and experience behind you. You've weathered storms most people wouldn't survive. You've buried loved ones, battled illness, started over, lost and found yourself many times. So, yes, you can handle it. Maybe not in the exact same way you did at 30, but with more grace, more wisdom, and more resilience than ever. People who ask that kind of question often see aging as a decline. But you know better. You know it's an evolution, a refinement, a distillation of all the parts of you that matter most. And if someone can't see that, if they look at your silver hair and seasoned heart and only see limitation, then maybe they're not looking at you with love. Maybe they're looking at you through the lens of their own fear, their own aging, their own regrets. That's not yours to carry. Sometimes these fake friends ask questions that seem helpful, even generous, but have strings attached. One of the trickiest ones is, "Why didn't you ask me for help?" At first glance, it sounds like they care, like they're disappointed they weren't there for you. But look closer. Often, this question doesn't come with actual support. It comes with guilt, with judgment, with the suggestion that you're too proud, too private, or even too difficult. But you know your life. You know when to ask for help and when to stand tall. And maybe, just maybe, you didn't ask them. Not because you didn't need help, but because you didn't trust what that help would cost. Because sometimes help from a fake friend isn't free. It comes with subtle debts, with reminders, with whispers behind your back. There's a difference between someone who wants to help you and someone who wants to feel superior to you by helping. Real friends offer assistance freely, and they don't hold it over your head. Fake friends, they want a gold star. They want a story to tell. They want something in return. Sometimes just the satisfaction of knowing you needed them. But needing people is not a weakness. It never was. It's a strength to know when to reach out. But only when it's safe to do so. Only when you know the hand extended to you is steady, kind, and won't slap you with shame once you've taken it. Let me ask you something. How many times in your life have you bit your tongue just to keep the peace? How many times have you said, "That's just how she is," or "He means well," while brushing off the fact that you felt smaller every time you walked away from them? This part of your life, this chapter, is about freedom, about finally shedding the need to explain yourself to people who never really tried to understand you, about releasing friendships that were never rooted in love, only in habit, convenience, or power dynamics that no longer serve you. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to grieve the friendships that you thought would last forever but turned out to be hollow. And you are absolutely allowed to say, "I deserve better." If something feels off, trust that. If someone's words chip away at your peace, listen to that inner nudge. Because by the time you reach this stage in life, your soul knows the truth. Even if your lips have spent years silencing it for the sake of being polite. There is a sacredness to this season of life. A stripping away of what no longer serves you. A gentle, powerful return to your core. And part of that journey is becoming fiercely protective of your space, your time, and your joy. You've spent so many years giving. To children, to careers, to causes, to friendships. Now is your time to choose. To choose which voices get to speak into your heart. To choose who gets a seat at your table and who doesn't. Not everyone deserves access to your story, your energy, or your trust. And that doesn't make you cold. it makes you wise. Somewhere along the way, you realize that the company you keep isn't just about who makes you laugh or who remembers your birthday. It's about who makes you feel whole when the conversation ends. It's about walking away from someone and feeling lighter, not heavier. And yet there's this one question, so deceptively casual, that fake friends tend to ask when they see you making progress in your life. Don't you think you're getting a little too old for that? Maybe it's after you mention wanting to take up yoga, go on a solo trip, try online dating, or even start a YouTube channel of your own. That question might come with a chuckle, or a raised eyebrow, or worse, a patronizing pat on the hand. It's the kind of remark that's meant to shrink you right back down into their idea of who you're supposed to be. But let me remind you of something. There is no age limit on joy. There is no expiration date on growth. And there is no universal rule that says you must stop dreaming once you hit 60, 70, or beyond. People who ask that question aren't concerned about your well-being. They're uncomfortable with your boldness. Your willingness to live, to try, to enjoy yourself threatens whatever boxes they've decided to live inside. Maybe they stopped growing and they expect you to do the same. But you're not here to play small just because someone else gave up on themselves. You've earned this time in your life, not just to rest, but to rise. To rediscover parts of yourself you may have had to set aside for years while taking care of others. So when someone questions your excitement, your new goals, or your energy to begin again, take a moment and check in with how it makes you feel. If you find yourself second-guessing your enthusiasm after talking to them, that's a red flag. Real friends fan your flames. Fake ones try to blow them out. And the final question, the one that often comes with a false smile and a twinge of mock concern, is this: who else is even going to put up with you? Sometimes it's said jokingly. Sometimes it's buried in sarcasm. But the message underneath it is always the same. You're lucky anyone even tolerates you. That you're difficult. That your needs, your personality, your standards are a burden. Let's be honest. That's emotional abuse dressed up as humor. It's meant to make you doubt your worth. To stay quiet when something feels off. To feel grateful for crumbs. But you are not a burden. You are a full human being with needs, emotions, opinions, and dreams. And anyone who makes you feel like you're too much is someone who doesn't deserve access to your heart. Fake friends weaponize this kind of language to keep you in your place, not because you're hard to love, but because you have the courage to expect real connection, because you've stopped pretending that it's okay to be belittled in exchange for companionship. You know better now. Love doesn't mock. Friendship doesn't tear down. Real connection isn't built on guilt, obligation, or shame. The more you learn to spot these questions, not just hear them, but feel what they really mean, the easier it becomes to honor what you truly deserve. And here's the beautiful thing. Once you start setting those quiet, clear boundaries, the right people begin to show up. People who don't just tolerate you, but appreciate you. Who don't just listen to you, but remember what you said. Who don't just laugh with you, but support you when things aren't funny. It's never too late to choose different. To decide that your time, your heart, and your energy belong only to those who treat them as sacred. You don't need to carry the weight of one-sided friendships just because they've been in your life for years. History isn't loyalty. Time served doesn't mean you owe someone forever. Letting go of fake friends isn't an act of cruelty. It's an act of self-love. And that kind of love, especially later in life, is the most powerful kind there is. You're not just older. You're wiser. You know what peace feels like. You've spent enough time around people who made you question yourself to finally recognize the beauty of being around those who make you feel safe, seen, and celebrated. So here's your reminder. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to raise your standards without apology. The people who truly love you will meet you there, not guilt you for growing. And if this video has stirred something in you, if a face or two came to mind, don't ignore that feeling. Sit with it, explore it, and then slowly begin making space for better, for kinder, for true. There are still beautiful friendships ahead, deep connections, surprising laughter, honest conversations, but they only come when you clear out the space where fake friendship used to live. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope it's helped you feel just a little more empowered, a little more seen. If you've had experiences like this, feel free to share in the comments. Your story might help someone else feel less alone. And if this message spoke to you today, please like the video and subscribe to Strong Elderly Life. We're building a community where wisdom is honored, healing is encouraged, and no one has to walk alone. You're not too old to make a change. You're not too much to love. And you are absolutely not here to shrink. Here's to living your truth, loving yourself deeply, and surrounding your life with the kind of people who truly deserve you. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and stay free.